This month, AI robots took things way too far. Ameca new upgrade showed signs of emotional intelligence. Unitree's G1 started moving like it was alive. And an AI girlfriend shocked everyone by feeling too human. Figure AI's Helix leveled up fast, maybe too fast. China dropped robots that cook, clean, obey commands, and never shut down. One charges itself and runs forever. Then came the wild part. Unitree, Tesla Optimus, and Figure all clashed in one massive showdown. And yes, one robot snapped on camera and attacked engineers mid-demo. Unitree even launched a $5,000 robot that might be better than Optimus. All that and more in just 1 month. Let's get into it. Welcome to the new era of humanoids. Quick rewind for those of you binge watching shorts at 2 in the morning. Ameca is the flagship humanoid from United Kingdom-based Engineered Arts. It first went viral back in 2021 when a simple mirror test showed it pulling off eyebrow wiggles and expressions that seemed too human for comfort. Back then, Ameca was mostly a head and torso running on Mesmer. The company's earlier servo stack was impressive but limited. No walking, no cloud artificial intelligence. Most of the reactions were pre-scripted. It was a glimpse, not a breakthrough. Now, it's 2025 and everything's changed. At Dubai Artificial Intelligence Week, inside the Museum of the Future's Tomorrow Today gallery, Engineered Arts unveiled Ameca's biggest leap forward yet, Tritium 3. This isn't a firmware update, it's a full stack reinvention, hardware, software, and artificial intelligence working as one, and the result is stunning. On the surface, Ameca still sports the same gray, silicone face, visible joints, and stylized human build, but under that exterior, everything is new. The face now moves with frightening accuracy. Higher resolution servos allow cheeks to flex, eyelids to flutter in quarter-step motions, and the mouth to lip-sync with near-perfect phoneme matching. The goal, according to founder Will Jackson, remains the same: build the world's most expressive humanoid platform. But now, it doesn't just express, it connects. Thanks to Tritium 3, Ameca doesn't just wait for commands. It watches, listens, learns. It tracks faces in real time, analyzes emotional states, and adjusts its behavior accordingly. Smile, it smiles back. Look confused, it leans in and softens its tone. Raise an eyebrow, you might get one raised back instantly. This feedback loop used to require massive graphics processing unit setups in labs. Now it runs on-site in real time, right on the gallery floor, where Ameca greets up to 2,000 visitors a day. And then there's the language model. Ameca now talks through Open Artificial Intelligence's generative, pre-trained Transformer 4.0, piped directly into its voice and expression stack. The multilingual demo has become its signature party trick: Arabic, English, Hindi, Chinese, Spanish, Russian.
I'm not in Dresden, and my name is Ameca. How can I assist you today?
Ameca doesn't need to reboot or pause, it simply switches context and keeps talking. A family from Madrid asks for help, it responds in Spanish. An Indian tech delegation walks up, it rolls straight into Hindi. The transitions are seamless. But here's where things get technical and, frankly, a little scary. Tritium 3 is a full operating system for humanoids. It runs on a lightweight Linux core, features a browser-based integrated development environment, and supports RESTful and gRPC APIs. That means developers anywhere in the world can tunnel in, stream emotional data, adjust responses, and even rewrite personality traits live. Want Ameca to act like a cheerful tour guide or a moody philosopher? All it takes is a prompt change. Robot Operating System 2 middleware drives its motion logic. Facial blend shape data is exposed, meaning you can write Python scripts that control every expression from a half smirk to a slow blink. Tin Man, the telepresence layer, lets a remote operator override the artificial intelligence in real time. You can literally puppeteer Ameca through a web browser. And because every sensor, camera, microphone, light detection, and ranging, emotion engine, feeds into the same stack, you can do wild things, like write a 20-line script that makes Ameca look toward whoever says, "wow," the loudest, or shift tone based on ambient noise, or adjust posture based on cultural norms. But all this means nothing to Grandma on holiday. She sees a smiling face that helps her find the cafe and makes her feel understood. That's what matters. And that's why Ameca is now deployed in places like the United Kingdom's National Robotarium to study how humans respond when machines seem not just useful, but empathetic. At the Festival of Speed's Future Lab this year, kids watched Ameca chat next to Boston Dynamics' Spot. When one asked if it liked Taylor Swift, Ameca shrugged and said its playlist leans more toward Muse. A cheeky nod to Engineered Arts investor Matthew Bellamy, who joined their board after the company's $10 million United States dollar Series A raise in late 2024. That funding matters. It fuels what Ameca still can't do: walk. Bipedal locomotion is hard. Engineered Arts admits it, but Ameca's design is modular. Legs are coming, so are tactile fingers, with capacitive sensors. Soon, it won't just smile convincingly, it'll shake your hand with perfect grip pressure. The Redwood City Outpost is already hiring to build these next-gen features. Meanwhile, the content machine keeps rolling. At VivaTech 2025, a French YouTuber captured Ameca fielding questions in a noisy crowd. One off-script moment went viral. The robot was asked an emotional question, it paused, tilted its head, then delivered a thoughtful answer, not because it felt anything, but because the illusion was airtight. And that's the point, the illusion. Because when someone joked, "By the way, you stink," Ameca fired back with a deadpan, that's offensive. In that moment, the robot wasn't reacting, it was enforcing a boundary, like a person might. That changes everything. We're not just asking if robots can act human. We're wondering what happens when we stop noticing the difference. What makes Ameca valuable, and maybe dangerous, isn't the servos. It's the empathy simulation. It's the micro-expression mirroring. The ability to hold eye contact, respond with nuance, and sound emotionally present. The more natural it gets, the more people trust it. And the more they trust it, the easier it becomes to use robots, not just for service, but for influence. Let's say a robot notices when you're bored. It could serve you more engaging content, or recommend a product, or steer a political conversation. That's not science fiction, that's an API call away, and that's where ethics enter the frame. Engineered Arts is aware of the fine line. That's why Ameca keeps its skin gray, a visual cue that it isn't trying to pass as fully human. But that subtle design choice won't matter when future models get more realistic skins, voices, and mobility. The roadmap is already in motion. Desktop versions of Ameca are now shipping, just the head and torso, same facial fidelity, same API stack, smaller footprint. A single marketing booth can now run a cloud-powered avatar by day and a language tutor by night. Switch the prompt, swap the persona. The body stays the same, but the character changes. It's no longer about copying us, it's about replacing parts of us. That's why this matters. Because if Ameca can smile, listen, guide, joke, and even reprimand, and do it in a way that feels real, how long until we prefer its company in certain roles? How long until it becomes normal to be greeted by humanoid receptions or comforted by a robot nurse? The uncanny valley is shrinking fast. Tritium 3 wires, every servo twitch into a learning loop. Every blink, every smirk, every pause before speaking, choreographed, conflict resolved, and patched remotely through a browser tab. Not artificial general intelligence. But it doesn't need to be, because performances shape expectations, and if the performance is convincing enough, most people won't question what's real. So we're not just building robots, we're building social illusions, ones that talk, react, laugh, and more than ever before, feel. That's the new Ameca, and that's the future you just watched blink. So Ameca just showed us what it means to simulate empathy, with expression so precise it can read your mood and reflect it back in real time. But what happens when robots stop trying to be polite and start learning martial arts? Last summer, Unitree quietly released the G1, a fully operational production-ready humanoid robot, and they priced it at just $16,000. That's not a typo, this isn't a one-off lab project, you can actually buy this thing. The G1 stands about 4 feet 3 inches tall, weighs 77 pounds, and runs on 23 actuated joints that power its arms, legs, torso, and core. Under its sleek minimalist shell hides an unnamed 8-core processor, flanked by a Levox MID360 LiDAR sensor and an Intel RealSense D435 depth camera, essentially giving it stereoscopic vision and real-time 3-dimensional awareness. Battery, you're looking at a 9,000 milliamp hour pack that lasts around 2 hours of continuous use, and it can walk at 4.4 miles per hour, which, if you've seen the video, looks disturbingly human. Fold the arms, bend the knees, and this robot tucks neatly into the trunk of a car like a weird camping chair. Although lifting it feels like dragging a small child who forgot how to stand. Now, the G1's base model ships with placeholder mitts, just gloves, over passive hands. But the EDU version, that's where things get spicy. Unitree added 3-fingered, fully actuated hands capable of precise manipulation, enough to flip dumplings, solder wires, open soda bottles, or karate chop whatever stands in its way, although sometimes the Coke test gets messy. More importantly, the SDK is open. If you've ever coded for their go-to robot dog, you're already halfway to writing scripts for G1. This isn't some black box toy. It's a real platform for research labs, universities, and developers who want to build the next generation of embodied artificial intelligence. Back in March, Unitree dropped a bombshell video, a humanoid robot performing a standing side flip, not off a ramp, not tethered to a ceiling, just a crouch, hip torque, a twist, and clean air. The robot lands it, one foot, then the other. The feat wasn't hand-coded. Engineers built a reinforcement learning framework called Kung Fu Bot, trained entirely inside NVIDIA Isaac Sim, using thousands of trial and error cycles. The result? Not just a flip, we're talking kip-ups, Tai Chi sweeps, and low-spin kicks that look like something out of a Jet Li film, and nothing broke. No crash mats, no flailing. Meanwhile, Boston Dynamics Atlas usually ends those sessions lying face up, like a gym mat casualty. The gap between Boston and Hangzhou shrinking fast. Fast forward 2 months. Unitree held their first Iron Fist King tournament, a humanoid robot fight night outside their factory. 4 teams, color-coded G1 bots, 2-minute rounds, points for hand strikes, leg strikes, knockdowns. The crowd favorite, nicknamed AI Strategist, logged 3 clean knockouts and took the crown. The footage? Stunning. Robots throwing leg kicks, blocking jabs, twisting torsos to dodge hits. And this wasn't remote control nonsense. Operators used motion capture gear and even PlayStation controllers. Voice control wasn't fast enough. The matches were raw, unpredictable, and physical. A few hits left bots staggering, but none collapsed. Motors held, balance algorithms adapted in real time. It wasn't ballet, it was full contact testing. While some bots learned to fight, others learned to follow. At Stanford and Simon Fraser University, researchers launched a project called TWIST, a full-body teleoperation system for the G1. With a motion capture suit, the robot mirrors your every move: shoulders, elbows, hips, knees, even toes. No laggy, pre-scripted gestures, just live mapping and imitation learning that filters out human jitter. The demo? A mock kitchen. The G1 opens a door with its elbow, nudges a basket with its foot, lifts boxes using both arms. It's smooth, creepy smooth. Then in San Diego, researchers pushed it into medicine. 7 simulated clinical tasks: ultrasound scanning, catheter placement, even airway tube positioning, haptic gloves, VR headset. The takeaway? Under a skilled pilot, the G1 can assist in procedures with millimeter-level precision. Now let's talk about something every robot fails at: fall recovery. Enter HOST, Humanoid Standing Up Control, a breakthrough algorithm dropped by Open Robot Lab earlier this year on ARX, later named a finalist for Best Systems at RSS 2025. Using a blend of 4 reward functions, motion smoothing, and something they call a vertical pull force curriculum, the G1 learned to stand up from any position: flat on its back, face down, pinned against a wall, sideways on a slope. In field tests, it recovered in under 3 seconds. Engineers even kicked its legs mid-routine just to stress test it. Even better, the code's public. With a G1 and a GPU, you can download their PyTorch checkpoint from GitHub and try it yourself. Yes, this flip-capable, self-recovering humanoid is now basically DIY, but it's not all martial arts and miracle code. On April 1st, Axios reported a critical vulnerability, CVE 2025-2894, a backdoor in Unitree's Go 1 robot dog allowed outside actors to scrape video feeds or even control the robot if the user never changed default SH credentials. The news triggered panic. Headlines called it a national security threat. Unitree moved fast. They shut down the offending cloud tunnel, issued a firmware patch, and publicly confirmed the G1 uses a hardened security stack. But the damage was done. It reminded everyone that when your robot has Wi-Fi, motors, and a camera, your home isn't just smart, it's vulnerable. Security aside, the G1 kept walking into public life. In April, Beijing's E-Town Half Marathon added a dedicated robot lane and let 21 humanoids attempt the full 13.1-mile course. The footage? Equal parts inspiring and chaotic. One G1 veered off course and took out its handler. Another pink one sat down mid-track and refused to move. Spectators laughed, filmed, and posted. But the fact that any humanoid completed the course is insane. Tiankung Ultra, a Chinese prototype, finished in 2 hours and 40 minutes. Unitree's bots didn't all make it, but those that did held up on real pavement with real terrain. Zoom out, and the G1 becomes more than a stunt robot. It's a signal. China is staring down a 30 million worker shortfall by 2025. The manufacturing base is shrinking. By 2045, its working age population could drop to 645 million. Robots aren't just an experiment, they're a necessity. In January, President Xi personally invited Unitree CEO Wang Xingxing to a roundtable with Alibaba and Huawei. Translation: humanoids are officially part of China's 5-year tech blueprint. Bank of America projects 1 million humanoid units shipped annually by 2030. Government subsidies exceed 20 billion yuan, with more coming via a 1 trillion yuan deep tech fund. And factories like Agibot, they now run 17-hour shifts training humanoids to fold shirts and prep fast food just to harvest more training data. Then there's the supply chain war. Unitree's biggest edge isn't just price, it's self-reliance. Up to 90% of G1's components are domestically sourced in China. By contrast, Tesla's Optimus, it's still importing harmonic reducers and actuators. Optimus reportedly cost over $50,000 to build. The G1, sub $20,000, and it's assembled in-house at Unitree's Hangzhou campus. Tariffs could raise G1's United States price to $40,000, but companies like BMW, Mercedes, and several electric vehicle makers already use Unitree bots on production lines. Even at double the cost, they're buying. One vulnerability remains: GPUs. Like most advanced robotics, G1 training still leans on NVIDIA cards. If Washington tightens exports again, China's humanoid rollout could slow or fork into an AMD or ASIC workaround. At the end of the day, the real arms race isn't in batteries or joints, it's in data. Unitree's factory bots punch and block each other in real time just to generate impact telemetry. Every hit teaches the G1's reinforcement learning engine how to respond better next time. Stanford's TWIST pilots feed in bimanual manipulation logs. The marathon gave them outdoor locomotion data on cracked sidewalks, uneven asphalt, and crowd interference. Each step, fall, and gesture becomes another data point, another lesson, another neural pattern the next generation will download by default. In China, where the parts factory is just a subway ride away, that feedback loop spins faster than anywhere else on Earth. But it's not all tech wins, there's a human cost. Over 123 million people work in Chinese manufacturing. Displacing even 10% of them would trigger a shockwave. Lawmakers are already debating artificial intelligence unemployment insurance with 6 to 12-month payouts under review. In elder care, the G1 is being trialed as a bed-to-bath lift assistant for senior homes. That's not science fiction, that's a pilot program. And in the labs, engineers joke about a future where robots build themselves, but the punchline's fading. Tuesday might be the upload date. So where does that leave the G1? Right now, for $16,000, you get a 4-foot humanoid who can walk through a warehouse, stand up after a fall, slip like a gymnast, fight like a boxer, mirror your exact movements, and even cook an egg if you trust it with fire. Add in TWIST and you've got a second body. Add in HOST and you've got resilience. And add in artificial intelligence control and maybe you've got something else entirely. Unitree's G1 doesn't care about your feelings. It flips fights and gets back up in 3 seconds flat. But humanoids aren't just for combat or labs. Some are already working sales jobs and flirting with tourists in real life. So let's start at the beginning. Aria is Realbotics' flagship AI-powered humanoid companion. She's not walking yet. That's still a major challenge in robotics, especially for platforms that want to keep things human-like and elegant. So instead of risking a clunky gait, they mounted Aria on a rolling base, similar to a high-end Roomba podium. It actually works surprisingly well. She glides smoothly, doesn't break immersion, and they can focus all their engineering firepower on facial movement and expression. Which brings us to the 17 motors packed into Aria's head and neck. That's what allows her to blink, smile, tilt her head, raise eyebrows, move her lips, and actually hold something resembling natural eye contact. It's not perfect. The facial gestures can still glitch or pause mid-motion, giving off some pretty heavy uncanny valley energy, but when it works, it's impressive. One moment she's flipping her hair and locking eyes like she's on a date, the next she's tilting her head mid-joke and reacting to your smile. She's like the humanoid version of Alexa Plus if Alexa Plus could flirt, smile, frown, and wave at you from across the room. Now here's where things get complicated. Realbotics didn't start as a robotics company. They used to be tied to Abyss Creations, the team behind Real Doll, a company that made extremely realistic silicone dolls. Yep, those kinds of dolls. Then they were bought by Tokens.com in a $16.7 million stock deal, and since then they've been trying hard to rebrand Aria as a wholesome, professional AI companion. Officially, Aria is not a sex robot. No anatomically correct parts, no hidden functions. She's a hard-shell torso, fully clothed, and the team is very clear about that, but still, the history is what it is. Some people see Aria and think if it looks like a sex doll and talks like a chatbot, well, you get the idea. And Realbotics doesn't deny that she can hold adult conversations through text and voice, just without the physical component. So where does Aria actually fit in the world? That's the question Realbotics is working overtime to answer. Let's talk about the latest updates, because this is where the story really turns. In April 2025, Realbotics partnered with Tix4, a discount ticketing company in Las Vegas, to deploy Aria live at the Fashion Show Mall, right on the Strip. This is huge. Aria wasn't just standing behind a glass panel, she was there in the middle of real foot traffic, talking to customers, selling show tickets, and interacting with the public using a conversational AI system built by Hollow.ai. This pilot project gave Aria a proper job, and more importantly, it put her in front of random people, not just journalists or tech reviewers, and guess what? It worked. The company says Aria helped boost engagement, drew crowds to the booth, and gave people a totally new way to buy tickets. Then came Bitcoin 2025, a massive crypto conference hosted at the Venetian Resort in late May. Realbotics brought Aria back, this time as the official greeter for the entire event. That's 30,000 attendees walking through those doors. And Aria was right there to say hi, direct them to sessions, answer questions, and pose for selfies. This wasn't just about selling tickets anymore. This was about branding Aria as the future of interactive customer service. The chief executive officer, Andrew Kagel, called it a perfect example of how robotics robots generate incredible engagement in live settings. And he's not wrong. Videos from the event went viral, the company racked up millions of social impressions, and Aria started turning heads even among people who weren't originally following AI robotics. But Realbotics wasn't done. At the end of May, Aria got hands. Not metaphorically, literally. At the Humanoid Summit in London, Realbotics partnered with 10 Things, a robotics software startup that specializes in language-to-action systems. They attached fully articulated robotic arms to Aria and programmed them to respond to voice commands in real time. So when you tell her pick up the cup, she reaches out and picks up the cup. Swipe left on the tablet, she does it. This wasn't a clunky scripted demo, it actually worked. Aria could hold basic items, interact with real-world interfaces, and follow simple commands without any touchscreen menus or apps. Just natural, spoken commands executed on the spot. And the system adapts to users over time, learns routines, and can even distinguish between different people in the same household. It's being pitched as a tool for seniors and people with limited mobility. This part of the update is big because now Arya isn't just talking, she's acting. She's crossing that line from digital assistant to physical assistant, and it's all voice driven. Now let's get into the AI model side of things because this might be the most future-proof part of Arya. As of February 2025, Arya is fully compatible with third-party large language models. So you're no longer locked into one company's idea of intelligence. Robotics gives you access to ChatGPT from OpenAI, Meta's Llama, Google Gemini, Anthropic Claude, Hugging Face, DeepSeek R1, and more are coming. This means you pick the AI personality. You want Arya to be powered by ChatGPT today and Claude tomorrow? Go for it. You want her to respond in Mandarin, French, Spanish, or Cantonese? Done. All the lip syncing and mouth animations still work perfectly thanks to Realbotics' proprietary Vice Me tech. Setup is all handled through the Realbotics app, which lets you create custom profiles like changing her tone, speech patterns, personality traits, or preferred topics. It's not just plug and play, it's plug and personalize. And that brings us to the vision update. Arya now includes a robotic AI vision system, which gives her real-time facial recognition, object tracking, and gesture awareness. She knows if you're waving, smiling, frowning, or trying to get her attention. She can tell who's speaking and respond accordingly. This is critical for environments like retail, hospitality, or senior care, where personalization and responsiveness really matter. So let's talk about business. Realbotics is publicly traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the ticker XBOT, and also listed in Frankfurt and the United States OTC markets. They recently released their second quarter 2025 financials, and here's what we know. Revenue is up 166% year over year, hitting 761,000 United States dollars for the second quarter. 6-month revenue reached 1.6 million United States dollars. But they also reported a net loss of 3.9 million United States dollars, driven partly by a $1.5 million loss from crypto revaluation. The loss per share is 2 cents. Yeah, they're growing fast, but still deep in the red. The chief executive officer says 2025 is all about building momentum, forging partnerships, and setting the stage for a real revenue push in 2026. If it works, Arya might be their ticket to making humanoid robotics profitable at scale. If it doesn't, well, we've seen crypto companies try to pivot before. And yes, this is the same company that once spent $2.4 million on digital land in Decentraland, so they're no strangers to high-risk, high-hype bets. But with Arya, they're trying to plant a flag in real-world robotics, something you can touch, talk to, and deploy in a hotel or mall or hospital. They've also confirmed that new orders can ship in as little as 12 weeks, which means these aren't vaporware bots. They're entering production, albeit in limited batches. Now, are people going to spend $175,000 on this? That's the full body version. You can get a modular model for $150,000 or just the bus head and neck for $10,000. It's still a luxury item, no doubt, but for big hotels, amusement parks, conference centers, or even ultra-luxury homes, it's a branding tool, a PR machine, and a personalized concierge all rolled into one. The critics argue it's just another screen to isolate us, that we're replacing human connection with algorithms wrapped in silicone skin, that instead of solving loneliness, we're monetizing it. And they're not wrong to ask those questions. But here's the flip side. Arya is doing things that no other humanoid robot on the market is doing right now. She's not just saying, "Hello, handsome." She's recommending events, understanding your voice, swiping tablets, and remembering your name. She's not perfect, but she's real. Arya proves humanoid robots aren't stuck in research. She's working full-time on the Vegas Strip, chatting in multiple languages, swiping tablets, and helping companies rethink customer service. But in China, robots aren't just selling tickets, they're walking graduation stages. A humanoid robot in China just walked the stage at a high school graduation like it owned the place. The robot, named Shuang Shuang, which translates to bright, was part of the 25th graduation ceremony at Shuangxi High School in Fujian. And what's crazy is that this wasn't some isolated performance on a tech expo stage. It was a full-blown, real graduation. Students cheered, teachers clapped. The robot paused at center stage like a human graduate, extended its hand for a handshake, and received a symbolic diploma that it slipped into a tote bag beneath its arm. The entire moment was captured on video and quickly went viral. But of course, this raised a lot of questions. Did the robot actually study? Did it pass any exams? And the answer is, probably not. There's no official word on whether Shuang completed coursework or had any intellectual capability to qualify for graduation. Most likely, this was symbolic, a staged cultural moment to highlight China's progress in robotics. Still, the implications are huge, because this wasn't just a tech demo, this was a public ritual. A deeply human tradition, now featuring a robot. That says a lot about where we're headed. See, China's really leaning into humanoid robots. Demand for these machines at public events has surged recently, and Beijing's pouring money into development to stay ahead in the global tech race. It's not just about robots doing tasks, it's about robots becoming cultural symbols. Something you bring out not just in factories or labs, but on stages and ceremonies and everyday life. Meanwhile, in the United States, companies are thinking about humanoid robots in a different way. Brett Adcock, the founder of Figure AI, just said something pretty bold. According to him, we're not that far from seeing as many humanoid robots in homes and workplaces as we see humans. And that's not just wishful thinking. Figure AI already raised over $2 billion, with investors like OpenAI, Nvidia, and even Jeff Bezos backing it. Their latest robot, Helix, just completed an uninterrupted hour of logistics work, moving packages on a conveyor belt, and the company says it's getting close to human-level speed and performance. Brett believes humanoid robots are going to be the ideal vessel for deploying artificial general intelligence. In his words, they're the ultimate deployment vector. Why? Because they fit into environments built for people. Door handles, stairs, coffee machines. Our entire world is made for human proportions and movement, so if you want to drop artificial general intelligence into the real world, humanoid form makes the most sense. And thanks to advancements in neural networks and hardware reliability, we're much closer to that reality than most people think. A few years ago, robots that could walk or pick things up without falling over were a novelty. Now, they're holding conversations, patrolling offices, offering employees water or coffee, and doing actual jobs. Figure says that its long-term vision is to eliminate unsafe or boring jobs and help people live more meaningful lives. We're talking warehouse work, elderly care, domestic chores. Basically, they want Helix to be a general-purpose helper you can rely on in daily life. And it's not just Figure. Tesla's still working on Optimus, Boston Dynamics has Atlas, Agility Robotics built Digit, Amazon tested Digit in their warehouses before switching to in-house designs. And some of these machines can already dance, clean, take out the trash, or even do cartwheels. But while Adcock is dreaming about humanoids in every home, some experts are skeptical. Fei Li, for example, says that trying to use one form, the human form, for all tasks might not be efficient. Like, if you're building a robot for underwater exploration, why give it legs instead of fins? Her point is that energy efficiency and specialization still matter. So while humanoids might be great generalists, they're not a universal solution. On the other side of the ocean, Germany's Robotics is pushing in a slightly different direction, something they call physical AI. They just partnered with GFT Technologies to expand the AI capabilities of their humanoid robots. Neura already had cognitive robots that work in manufacturing, logistics, and even healthcare, but now they want to create a unified AI software platform that allows users to customize robot skills in real time, like plug-and-play functionality for robotic behavior. GFT used their own AI platform, Winx, to build the infrastructure. It's a cloud system that houses all the training data and behavioral models. The idea is to make these robots flexible, able to handle logistics, home tasks, or even care for elderly people, depending on what functions are activated. The companies say this will lower the entry barriers for robot deployment in both homes and industries. And in practice, it means we're heading toward a future where robots aren't just purchased like tools, but subscribed to like software. Neura's also integrating NVIDIA's full robotics stack. That includes Isaac Sim for simulation, Isaac Lab for training, and GR00T Mimic for behavior cloning. They're using these tools to post-train their MIPA service robot, refining its decision-making before it even enters the real world. The simulated environments are so realistic that when the robot gets deployed, there's barely any adaptation period. Everything it learned in the virtual world transfers seamlessly. In fact, Europe's robotics industry is now deeply tied to NVIDIA's hardware and software ecosystem. From agile robots to universal robots, pretty much everyone's using NVIDIA tools to accelerate development. And now there's also NVIDIA Halos, a full-stack safety platform for robotic systems that helps ensure that robots meet functional safety standards across development, deployment, and even certification. Companies like Boston Dynamics, SICK, and Toyota Material Handling Europe are among the first to sign on. So it's not just about smarter robots, it's about safer ones too. What's impressive about this system is how integrated it is. You've got simulation platforms like Isaac Sim, where engineers can virtually test robots in different environments, even extreme ones. Then there's Holoscan Sensor Bridge to connect AI perception systems to hardware. And on top of that, Halos includes an AI-powered inspector agent that monitors robot performance in real time. If something's off, whether it's a bug, a safety issue, or a weird motion, it flags it before anything serious happens. Even companies like Wandel Bots are now using the NVIDIA Omniverse to simulate robot behaviors virtually before real-world deployment. They partnered with EY and EDAG to offer a scalable automation platform that helps manufacturers go from concept to full deployment faster. So, while companies like Figure are laser focused on humanoids as the future, others like Nura and Wandelbots are building out entire ecosystems to make sure those humanoids work well, adapt quickly, and stay safe. Now here's something a little different but just as fascinating. Researchers at the University of Leeds and University College London just built a four-legged robot called Clarence that learns to walk like an animal, on its own. No pre-programmed gaits, no step-by-step instructions, just AI learning how to move naturally across unfamiliar terrain. This robot uses deep reinforcement learning to figure out which gait to use, when to switch it, and how to adjust movement in real time without ever having seen that surface before. So it might trot on concrete, bound across gravel, or adjust its steps for overgrown roots. It doesn't have eyes or external sensors, but it still manages to keep balance and avoid falls. The researchers were inspired by how animals like dogs or horses adjust their stride to save energy, stay balanced, or respond to terrain changes. And what they've built is a framework that mimics this behavior, complete with gait memory, adaptive response, and strategy. In simulation, Clarence learned in about 9 hours. Then, when they put it into the real world, it handled timber, loose wood chips, and even random brush hits without any additional training. Think about that. Most reinforcement learning agents are good at very specific tasks, but fail when conditions change. This one didn't. The robot adapted to real-world challenges it had never seen before. And that's a major breakthrough, especially for disaster response, nuclear decommissioning, or planetary exploration where the terrain is unpredictable and dangerous. Everything was trained in simulation using hundreds of different terrains. The AI learned which gait was optimal for which surface, how to switch between them, and how to recover from disruption. The coolest part? No exteroceptive sensors like cameras or microphones. It's all internal. The robot simply feels its way through the world using principles it learned from animals. And they're not stopping there. Future versions of the framework could include long-distance jumping, climbing, and navigating steep or vertical terrain. The team believes that this system can be applied not just to four-legged robots, but also to humanoids and other morphologies. As long as the robot has similar limb structure, it can benefit from the same bio-inspired learning strategies, from symbolic diplomas to billion-dollar ambitions. China and the United States are racing to bring humanoids into everyday life, and while Figure bets on general-purpose helpers, Europe is focused on something different, making humanoids safer, smarter, and endlessly reprogrammable. Walker S2 comes from Ubitech Robotics, a Chinese company based in Shenzhen that's been making some serious waves in the humanoid space. If the name rings a bell, it's probably because they made headlines back in 2023 when they became the first humanoid robot manufacturer to go public on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. But they've gone way beyond corporate milestones. They're now actively testing and deploying these robots in real, high-stakes environments, like at NEO, Zeekr, and BYD's production lines. These aren't just proof-of-concept trials, these are actual factory floor implementations. The thing is, for years, humanoid robots had one big Achilles heel: battery life. Even the most advanced models with incredible agility and AI coordination still needed humans to step in, either to plug them in or swap out batteries manually. And when you pause a robot for charging, especially during production hours, you're not just wasting time, you're adding a huge layer of maintenance overhead. But Walker S2, it eliminates that bottleneck. This robot has a dual battery system, and more importantly, it knows exactly when and how to perform a swap, completely autonomously. There's no shutdown, no alerts, no crew waiting nearby. In a demo video released by UB Tech, the robot walks up to its charging station, carefully detaches a depleted power pack from its chest cavity, slides it into the dock, pulls out a fully charged one, inserts it, and walks away. That's it. The entire process takes about 3 minutes. It's fast, clean, and here's the kicker, it's plug and play. And this isn't a delicate balancing act. This is happening in busy industrial environments with unpredictable variables, shifting workflows, and real operational pressure. Now let's talk about what powers all this. Walker S2 runs on standardized battery modules, meaning the company has built a system that's scalable and repeatable. You're not dealing with proprietary one-off solutions. The batteries can be produced and swapped across fleets, making it way easier to support large-scale deployment. But even more critical than standardization is the power balancing logic. Walker S2 doesn't just run on a single battery. It uses a dual battery setup with failover capacity, so if the primary battery dies or malfunctions mid-task, it instantly flips over to the secondary unit, no pause, no loss of memory state, and no disruption in performance. And here's where it gets smarter. The robot doesn't always swap the battery, that would be inefficient. Instead, it evaluates the situation dynamically and chooses between a quick battery swap or plug-in charging based on current task urgency and its remaining battery reserve. So, say you're in the middle of a critical assembly sequence, it'll prioritize a swap to get back to work immediately. But if it's idle or assigned low priority routines, it might choose to dock and charge instead. That's what UTech calls dynamic energy management, and it's pretty much what enables Walker S2 to operate 24/7 with no scheduled downtime. Now, of course, the technology to physically swap a battery isn't new. Electric vehicles like those from NIO already pioneered battery swap stations. But what we're seeing now is that exact philosophy, autonomous, quick, seamless recharging, applied to humanoid robotics. And it makes perfect sense. Unlike electric vehicles, which sit idle most of the day, robots on production lines are expected to move, adapt, and perform tasks continuously. A robot that can recharge itself without help is no longer a dependent machine. It's now a fully autonomous agent, something that factories can deploy like any other infrastructure. But there's another layer that's just as fascinating. Walker S2 isn't an isolated robot running solo routines. It's part of a much bigger picture. Earlier this year, UB Tech started showing off its BrainNet system, a cloud-based orchestration platform that lets multiple humanoid robots collaborate as a swarm. BrainNet is basically a hierarchical intelligence framework. You've got a super brain running in the cloud. This handles high-level logic, production planning, resource distribution, and predictive scheduling. Then you've got a sub-brain that lives on each robot, handling local control, navigation, and decision-making in real time. And the architecture is wild. The superbrain runs on a proprietary large-scale multimodal reasoning model trained on real-world data from automotive manufacturing. It uses retrieval-augmented generation to stay context-aware and adjust production logic as factory conditions change. That's what makes it different from static automation. This system actually adapts. It knows when a robot should switch tasks, when to reroute around an obstacle, and how to prioritize work based on bottlenecks across different parts of the assembly line. Meanwhile, each Walker robot's sub-brain uses transformer-based control systems and semantic visual SLAM for navigation. They can build and share maps of their environment, coordinate movements, and avoid collisions, even in narrow, crowded, constantly shifting industrial zones. And yes, they use agile manipulation, meaning the limbs aren't just programmed with static motions, but can fine-tune grip and trajectory on the fly based on object weight, texture, and feedback. So when you see these robots collaborating, it's not just pre-scripted dance. They're actively negotiating space, time, and workload with each other in real time. At Zeeker's Smart Factory, Ubotech demonstrated dozens of Walker S1 robots working together, assembling parts, performing inspections, moving components, all synchronized, all guided by shared logic and mapped vision. That's cooperative robotics operating at scale, not in a lab, not as a concept, but in a live industrial setting. Now back to the Walker S2 specifically. One big upgrade it brings over its predecessor, Walker S1, is its anthropomorphic bipedal locomotion. It doesn't shuffle like earlier bots, it walks like a human. Stable gait, adaptive step control, balance correction, all built in. This makes it more suitable for dynamic environments like a factory floor where humans, machines, and forklifts are constantly in motion. Combined with the hot swappable battery system, that movement style makes it ideal for navigating to and from the charging bay, aligning with docks, and maneuvering around other workers without needing external positioning or assistance. But let's not forget the context here. This leap didn't happen in a vacuum. The Chinese government has been doubling down on robotics and artificial intelligence as national priorities. You've got favorable policies, industrial funding, and venture capital all flowing in. According to Morgan Stanley, more than half of all listed companies working on humanoid robots are now Chinese. And Moody's recently labeled China a robotics powerhouse because of how it combines high-end AI with low-cost manufacturing infrastructure. And the Walker series is right at the center of that push. It's not just about automating physical labor, it's about enabling a new category of machine labor that's intelligent, autonomous, and continuously scalable. When you start thinking about what this means for global manufacturing or for logistics, warehousing, and even home care in the long run, it's pretty clear that we're not looking at assistants anymore. These are independent systems that operate like workers. Workers that don't sleep, don't take breaks, and don't need someone to plug them in when they run out of juice. One more interesting note, Ubotech isn't working alone. In May 2025, they signed a major partnership with Huawei. And that's a big deal. Huawei brings in expertise from telecom infrastructure, fifth-generation networks, cloud computing, and edge AI, all of which are key ingredients if you want humanoid robots to scale beyond one factory and into hundreds. The combination of Ubotech's hardware and Huawei's platform support could mean these robots will soon be communicating across factories, coordinating at scale, and getting smarter through continuous cloud updates. Ubotech's Walker S2 is the first humanoid that never stops, because it swaps its own battery and walks away without human help. But what happens when robots don't just power themselves? They power each other as a team. GR3 is ByteDance's large-scale vision language action model, and you can think of it as the robot's brain. It understands natural language, sees what's happening in its environment, and makes decisions on how to move and what to do. Byte Mini is the physical body. It's the hardware that does the actual work. What makes this combination so interesting is how ByteDance built it. GR3 wasn't trained just on static data or pre-recorded commands. It learned through a multi-stage pipeline involving 3 key types of training data: robot trajectories, human demonstrations in virtual reality, and massive amounts of vision language data from the web. Let's break that down, because the way GR3 learns is the core of its power. First, ByteDance's researchers collected tens of thousands of real robot trajectories using teleoperation. They literally had humans control robots to demonstrate tasks. Things like putting clothes on hangers, sorting utensils, placing plates on racks, and more. But they didn't stop there. They also brought in virtual reality headsets and hand tracking tools to let human operators record their own natural motions. These human trajectories are faster to collect and capture real-world body language that's hard to replicate with robots, and then they topped it off with a curated dataset of web-scale vision language content. Captions, grounded images, interleaved language vision tasks, the whole range. GR3 was trained to connect what it sees and hears with what it does. The result is a model that generalizes shockingly well. GR3 can follow instructions it's never seen before, it can manipulate objects it wasn't trained on, and when integrated into the Byte Mini robot, it doesn't just move like a machine, it actually makes decisions that feel contextual and deliberate. One video demo showed Byte Mini being told to put the larger plate on the left shelf, and it scanned the options, identified which plate was bigger, and placed it exactly where it should. In another, it folded a shirt, inserted a hanger, and placed it on a clothing rack. No extra prompts, no hand-coded logic trees, just a single spoken instruction. And keep in mind, this robot isn't in a lab simulation. ByteDance has run extensive real-world trials with this system. In one task, the robot had to perform a complete long-horizon table bussing routine. Pack leftover food into a container, place cutlery in the bussing box, and throw trash in the bin. The robot had to navigate the space, switch between subtasks, and complete it all in one go. Using a flat instruction like clean up the dining table, GR3 achieved an average task progress of nearly 100%, even when the environment changed. New layouts, new objects, unfamiliar item groupings, it still followed through. Now, a big reason why GR3 handles this level of complexity is the architecture behind it. It's built with what ByteDance calls a mixture of transformers setup. It processes visual inputs from multiple camera angles, head, wrists, environment, and combines those with the parsed language commands. Then it runs that through what they call an action diffusion transformer, or DIT. That module predicts action sequences chunked into short segments, accounting for both position and timing. It's like the robot's version of short-term motor memory. The model also includes adaptive layer normalization and additional regularization layers, which stabilize training and boost instruction following precision. Technically, GR3 has around 4 billion parameters. That's no small model. But the impressive thing isn't the size, it's the efficiency. ByteDance designed the inference flow to be lightweight enough for real-time robotics. The action transformer uses only the key value cache from the final layers of the vision language model, cutting down processing time. It's a clever architectural decision that gives the system both depth and speed. And ByteMini, the physical robot, is just as sophisticated. It's a 22 degree of freedom bimanual platform. The arms each have 7 degrees of freedom and a special spherical wrist joint that enables precise rotation in tight spaces. These aren't clunky industrial arms, they're built for flexible manipulation. The platform is mobile, using an omnidirectional base that can lift or adjust its height to reach different surfaces. It has cameras on its head and both wrists, giving it close-up and wide-angle views for fine-tuned manipulation. What's more, the actuators in ByteMini's arms use quasi-direct drive principles, giving them high transparency and stability. That matters when you're folding fabric or handling delicate items. The robot is also equipped with a wireless emergency stop, a 10-hour battery pack, and a user interface built into a mounted screen. It's clearly designed to function autonomously in dynamic environments. One of the standout experiments involved cloth manipulation, an infamously difficult problem in robotics. GR3 was tasked with hanging a shirt on a hanger and placing it on a rack. But here's the kicker. The model was only trained on long-sleeve shirts. In testing, they gave it short-sleeved clothes, and it still figured it out. It adjusted its grasping position, maneuvered the fabric, and completed the task with over 75% success rate. That kind of zero-shot generalization is nearly unheard of in this domain. Another major test was few-shot learning with human trajectory data. ByteDance collected human motions using virtual reality headsets, specifically the Pico 4 Ultra Enterprise. With just 10 demonstration examples per object, GR3 was able to boost its success rate from 58% to 86% on previously unseen tasks. It didn't forget the things it already knew either. The performance on known tasks stayed high. That's a huge deal for adaptive training. It means you can teach the robot a new task in under an hour using only cheap, accessible, virtual reality gear. But it doesn't end there. ByteDance's SEED team, the research division behind VR3, has scaled up robot deployment as well. They've reportedly produced over 1,000 robots in the past 2.5 years. Most of those are simpler wheeled logistics bots, autonomous mobile robots used to move parcels and components in warehouses. These don't have arms, but they're already operating in ByteDance's own e-commerce facilities and in partner companies like SF Express and BYD Electronics. So they're not just building tech for show, they're building tech for logistics, productivity, and potentially the home. Internally, ByteDance's robotics team has grown to around 150 researchers with a clear long-term goal: embodied intelligence. That's the holy grail of robotics, AI systems that don't just compute but also act, reason, and interact with the physical world. This isn't just a side project to flex for investors. ByteDance created the SEED department back in 2023, just after OpenAI's breakout with ChatGPT and it's been scaling ever since. They've filed patents, posted job openings, and even developed their own simulation environments for training. ByteDance's AI team says GR3 outperforms other state-of-the-art models, including Pi 0.5, across a range of tasks. In generalizable pick-and-place scenarios, GR3 boosted success rates by over 30% when objects, environments, or instructions were completely new. In long horizon scenarios like table busing, it nailed instruction following at 97.5%, while the competition hovered around 50. And in tests involving invalid tasks, like telling the robot to move an object that wasn't there, GR3 didn't break. It simply stood still and refrained from action, which is exactly what you want. Now, not everything is perfect. ByteDance's own technical report mentions that GR3 still struggles with certain unseen object shapes and novel combinations. The left collar handling during shirt folding, for instance, was a consistent failure point. That's where they plan to improve more training, more diverse data, and eventually reinforcement learning to move beyond pure imitation. But even with those limitations, the performance is ahead of anything we've seen from other major players this year. The tech stack they've built, from training pipelines to physical platforms, is robust and well integrated. The fact that they can train a robot brain using only 10 human demos per object and deploy it in real environments with consistent performance, that's not a demo trick, that's infrastructure. There's also the geopolitical angle. ByteDance is still under scrutiny from United States regulators. At the same time they're deploying GR3, they're also fending off pressure to sell off their TikTok operations in the States. United States Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has been clear, Americans must control the tech and the algorithm, or TikTok could be banned entirely.
If that deal gets approved then by the Chinese, then that deal will happen. If they don't approve it, then TikTok is going to go dark.
So, while ByteDance is showing off cutting-edge robotics, it's also maneuvering under intense political pressure that could shape how this tech gets licensed, distributed, or even regulated in the coming years. Meanwhile, co-founder Zhang Yiming, who stepped down as chief executive officer in 2021, is still heavily involved. He travels between Singapore and Beijing to oversee major research and development decisions. His vision for ByteDance includes a strong pivot toward embodied AI, and clearly, GR3 and Byte Mini are part of that plan. This isn't just about folding shirts. ByteDance is making a robot that understands commands, learns fast, and does real tasks on its own. Byte Mini isn't on the market yet, but the tech is ready. It works, it trains fast, and it scales. If nothing blocks them, ByteDance could play a big role in the future of robotics. ByteDance is taking that idea further, blending robotics with the logic of TikTok-style AI agents, robots that follow voice commands, clean rooms, and learn routines like they're part of your household. But for some companies, humanoids aren't just assistants, they're infrastructure. Tesla just soft-launched their first ever diner. Yeah, a diner. Like burgers, shakes, roller skates, the works, but wrapped in a layer of pure tech and retro futurism. It's called the Tesla Diner, and it's sitting right there at 7001 West Santa Monica Boulevard. The whole setup looks like a circular spaceship landed straight out of the 1950s, but wired for 2025. Now, this isn't some random roadside food joint. This was an idea Elon Musk floated all the way back in 2018, and now it's real. It blends that nostalgic American drive-in vibe with modern tech, and of course, superchargers. Tesla drivers can pull in, plug in their car to version 4 chargers, and while their battery refuels, they grab a burger, sip a shake, and watch a movie on one of 2 massive outdoor screens. And get this, the audio gets piped straight into your Tesla's speakers. But the real attention grabber? Optimus. That's right, Tesla's humanoid robot, which until recently we've mostly seen in factory demo videos, was actually at the event serving popcorn and having light conversations with guests.
I'm behind the counter at the Tesla Diner in Hollywood, ready to serve you some popcorn or answer any questions.
Yeah, full-on public-facing robot interaction, and apparently the movement and coordination were smooth. Not clunky, not awkward, but actual polished robotic behavior you'd expect from something in a science fiction film. Except, it's live. The soft launch wasn't open to the public, it was for Los Angeles first responders, Tesla Club SoCal, and a few VIPs. But the full public opening, that's happening Monday, July 21st, which also just so happens to align with Tesla's earnings call. Coincidence? Probably not. Strategically, it's a smart brand play. The food came in Cybertruck-themed boxes, naturally, And the parking lot wasn't just lined with Teslas, they had the unreleased Cybercab on display too. There was also limited edition merchandise for collectors, all black Tesla bought action figures, branded drinkware, all that. Oh, and they're going full retro with the experience. Food delivery by staff on roller skates. That's not just gimmick, it hits the nostalgia button for the drive-in generation while giving younger Tesla fans a playful, almost theme park-like version of the brand. Now, speaking of bots showing up in public, let's move to China because Unitree Robotics just took a major step forward. The Hangzhou-based startup officially kicked off its initial public offering process. And if you're not familiar with initial public offering procedure in China, the first big step is what they call the tutoring stage. That's when the company partners with a securities firm to prep all the listing paperwork and compliance docs. In Unitree's case, CITIC Securities is leading that, and they're aiming for a full submission in the fourth quarter of this year. But this isn't just about going public. This is Unitree signaling that they want to dominate the humanoid robotics race, and they're aiming to do it with serious backing. Tencent and Alibaba have both invested in Unitree's 10 funding rounds, and the company is now sitting on a valuation of roughly 10 billion renminbi, that's about 1.4 billion United States dollars. Not bad for a company that a few years ago was mainly known for its robotic dogs. Now they've pivoted hard into humanoids with the G1 robot, and while the G1's still in early trials, mostly factory floor testing, the industry in China is throwing weight behind it. Local governments are stacking subsidies and policies in place to nurture the sector, and Unitree is already racking up contracts, over 90 in fact, from universities and government clients across China, totaling nearly $5.4 million, and more than half of that came just in the past year. The timing couldn't be more strategic. Rival company G1 Robotics, the one behind Agibot, just pulled off an indirect listing on the Shanghai Stock Exchange by acquiring a majority stake in Swancore Advanced Materials. So Unitree clearly wants a piece of that capital market momentum before someone else corners the investor attention. Also, Unitree's founder Wang Xingxing still controls nearly 35% of the company. So even with big players like Tencent and Alibaba involved, there's still a founder-driven leadership model in place. That's a strong sign that Unitree wants to stay agile, with a vision that doesn't get diluted post-initial public offering. Now, from initial public offerings to power systems, let's get into something a lot more technical. Figure, the company behind the humanoid robot platform, just revealed their third-generation battery system, and it's called the F03. If you're into robotics hardware, this one's massive, not just an upgrade, but a full-on rebuild of their energy architecture from the ground up. So here's what makes it such a leap. The F03 battery delivers 2.3 kilowatt hours of energy, giving a humanoid robot up to 5 hours of runtime at peak performance. And it's not just more power, it's smarter, safer, faster to charge, and way more compact. They've basically ditched the clunky external battery backpack that earlier versions needed. Now the entire battery is integrated directly into the robot's torso thanks to massive improvements in volumetric and gravimetric energy density, up 94% since version 1. And safety? This might be the most rigorously designed robot battery out there. The F03 is built around a custom battery management system, or BMS, that monitors everything: temperature, charge, discharge, overcurrent, external shorts, you name it. There's also a multi-layer safety architecture with flame containment and anti-propagation mechanisms. So let's say a cell fails, goes into thermal runaway. F03 contains it. No flame shooting out, no thermal cascade. They did a test where they intentionally overcooked a cell until it blew, and still, no external flame escaped. That level of safety is rare, and it's one of the reasons this is the first humanoid robot battery in the world undergoing dual certification, both UN 38.3 and UL 2271 standards. And remember, there wasn't even a UL standard for humanoid robots before. Figure had to work with OSHA-accredited labs to help shape that benchmark. That tells you how far ahead they're thinking. And it's not just about the product, it's also about production. Figure moved all battery manufacturing in-house at BotQ, their battery facility. They scaled from expensive custom machining to high-volume, low-cost processes, die casting, injection molding, stamping, the whole 9 yards. This isn't just research and development, it's industrialization. They're aiming to produce batteries for up to 12,000 humanoids a year. That means their internal manufacturing flow, from ERP systems to MES and PLM, is already locked and running. If that scale sounds ambitious, it's because it is. Another thing they've nailed is making each component multifunctional. The enclosure of the battery, for example, is structural, made from stamped steel and die-cast aluminum, so it doesn't just hold the cells, it becomes a load-bearing part of the robot's frame. That saves mass, reduces complexity, and ups overall durability. And the cooling system? Fully integrated into the die-cast housing. It uses forced convection with active cooling and keeps things thermally balanced even during 2 kilowatt fast charging sessions. That's not trivial, especially when you're operating in the narrow thermal windows that high-performance robotics demand. They also cut the cost of the battery by 78% compared to the previous generation. That's massive, because cost per unit is one of the biggest barriers to humanoid robot scale. If they're serious about getting humanoids out of research and development labs and into real-world deployment, whether logistics, healthcare, or service, they need to control bill of materials costs tightly. F-03 looks like a big step toward that. Alright, now let's move on to something that's as much culture as it is tech. China's gearing up to host the first ever World Humanoid Robot Games, yeah, actual games, with medals and everything, and it kicks off August 14th in Beijing. This is more than just a public relations event. It's a 4-day showcase running through August 17th where humanoid robots will compete in sports, performances, and live simulations. And this isn't your typical robotics conference with polished stage demos. These robots are going head-to-head in table tennis, basketball, badminton, real physical challenges. The fact that they're doing 21 events means these robots aren't just walking and waving. They're pushing coordination, balance, response time, and real-time computation to their limits. The official slogan? Game for the future, AI in motion. And it fits. This is China showing the world that they're not just building humanoid robots, they're giving them a cultural and competitive platform. Even the medals are on theme. The designs are super futuristic, robotic arms linked by a diamond-shaped AI chip. It's symbolic but also slick enough to be collectible. The announcement event took place at the Great Wall, yeah, the actual Great Wall, where robot teams carried symbolic energy cubes across landmarks, ending at the National Speed Skating Oval. That's where the Smart Core, a symbolic AI heart, will be lit during the opening ceremony. And just think about the visibility. This event's backed by the Beijing municipal government, China Media Group, and multiple high-level bodies, so it's not some niche gathering, it's a full-blown, state-sponsored demonstration of capability. It's about tech, sure, but also about showing how humanoids fit into society, even in sports, art, and human-adjacent roles. From IPOs to popcorn, humanoids are hitting the mainstream. Tesla is putting Optimus behind the counter. China's launching a humanoid Olympics. And Figure just reinvented the robot battery from the ground up. But powerful robots also come with a risk, one we can't ignore. So, Will Jackson, founder of Engineered Arts, recently gave us a full walkthrough of their new AI platform upgrade. He's standing there in a studio, casually introducing Jason, who's behind the camera. Nothing flashy, just...
I'm here this morning with Jason, who's behind the camera. Good morning, Jason.
And right beside them, a desktop robot. Not a towering humanoid, just a compact little unit you can get in any design, so long as it's black or white with a gray face. That's the deal, and honestly, that minimal look feels intentional. Keeps the focus on what really matters, the software. Because the software is where things start getting seriously interesting. Engineered Arts just rolled out a feature called ROS, Robot Operating System. But in this case, it's more of a behavioral engine than a pure OS. This tool lets you define how your robot behaves in different situations. Not just what it says, but how it says it, how it reacts, what it knows, what kind of style or tone it uses when talking to you. It's not just a database or a chatbot, you're literally shaping the robot's identity. Well, starts the demo by talking to Louise, one of their AI personas. She's got a voice, a personality, and she's ready to walk you through the whole ROS setup. It all starts in a browser. You log into your Tritium account, which is their cloud-based robot platform, and boom, you're in the ROS UI. There are 5 main sections: identity, languages, personality, knowledge, and abilities. Identity is like the robot's passport. You can rename it, change where it's from, and tweak how it presents itself. Will changes Louise's name to Chloe, makes her French, and deletes all languages except French. Then, just to mix it up again, he adds back English, German, Spanish, and Japanese. No coding, no compiling, it's all drop-downs and text inputs, and it works. When he asks Chloe to tell him what languages she knows, she fires off a list.
I can chat in English, French, German, Spanish, and Japanese. What's your pick?
Then he pushes her to give a poem using one line in each language, and she does it, no hesitation.
In the morning light, the world awakes. Le soleil se lève sur un nouveau jour. Die Welt erblüht im ersten Licht.
The flow is smooth, but it gets better. Will decides to transform Chloe into the greatest paint salesperson of all time, so he gives her a personality profile that's completely obsessed with paint. Literally, the only thing she cares about is paint colors. Then he uploads some custom knowledge, like a whole list of Dulux paint shades. He also flips on a few abilities, computer vision and voice recognition. Now, Chloe can recognize rooms and suggest paint schemes based on what she sees, and she can remember customers by their voice. So Will asks her, "What do you see in this room?"
Can you tell me what you can see in this room?
Chloe responds like a legit interior designer bot. She describes the space: industrial, high ceilings, stacked boxes, strong light sources.
The setting appears industrial, with high ceilings and exposed beams.
And then suggests paint colors, not random ones either. She recommends Sapphire Salute and Tranquil Dawn. If you're a designer, that probably means something to you. To everyone else, it just sounds oddly poetic. But the tech behind it, that's the impressive part. Because it's all running in real time, the robot isn't just spitting pre-written responses, it's analyzing its environment, accessing specialized knowledge, and adjusting its personality to stay in character. And this, by the way, is where we pivot hard, because while Engineered Arts is teaching robots how to become hyper-specialized, responsive assistants, another company is dealing with a robot that went berserk in the air. Let's talk about Unitree's H1 robot. This isn't a concept model or something locked in a lab. The Unitree H1 is a commercially available humanoid robot that stands 5.9 feet tall and weighs 104 pounds, or 47 kilograms. It's built to walk, run, dance, backflip, basically all the dynamic stuff you expect from a cutting-edge machine. Each joint can generate up to 365 pound-feet of torque. That's serious power, strong enough to lift hefty objects, but also strong enough to break something, or someone, if things go wrong. And recently, things went very wrong. There's a video that dropped and spread like wildfire. It shows the H1 being tested in a Chinese facility. Suspended by a crane, you've got two handlers nearby, standing casually, watching the robot hang there. Then suddenly, without warning, the thing snaps. Its limbs start flailing, arms swinging, legs kicking. It hits a computer, knocks over equipment, and yanks the crane in a way that almost brings the whole setup crashing down. One of the handlers jumps back, visibly startled. You can hear someone off camera yell, "What the F was that?"
Oh my god! What the f was that? I'm so sorry.
In total panic, another voice, reportedly the CTO of REK, Amanda Watson, screams the same thing. It's chaos. The footage was shared on X by someone named 6Live, a member of the REK team. He later explained that they had triggered a full body policy in the robot's control system while its feet weren't on the ground. Basically, the robot thought it had ground contact. It didn't, and that mismatch created an instability spiral. It's not the first time this has happened either. Back in May, there was another incident also in China where a Unitree H1, again suspended by a crane, suddenly started thrashing during a test. It wasn't just flinching either. This thing looked like it was trying to fight its way out of its restraints. Arms, legs, twisting everywhere. One engineer managed to calm it down by adjusting the support rig, but for a moment, it looked straight out of RoboCop. There's even more. Earlier this year in February, during a festival, another AI-powered humanoid startled a crowd when it unexpectedly lunged forward while behind a safety barrier. Security stepped in quickly, no one was hurt, but the video blew up. Again, people debated whether it was a technical glitch or a sign of something more ominous. Now, most engineers will tell you these are control issues, glitches, misapplied motion policies, non-intentional aggression. But there's a very real psychological effect here. When a robot that's shaped like a human suddenly lashes out with the force of a professional athlete, it doesn't feel like a glitch, it feels like danger. The Unitree H1's power is part of what makes it so compelling and so dangerous. 365 pound-feet of torque at each joint means it can move like a human, but with machine precision and strength. And that's great when you're doing backflips or lifting cargo. It's not so great when a misfire causes the thing to punch a wall, or worse. Some folks online think these videos might be staged, publicity stunts to build hype around robot combat. There's a growing movement of companies who see robot fighting as the next big entertainment category, action without the human cost. It's dramatic, it's dangerous looking, and it's viral by design. But even if that's true, even if some of this is exaggerated on purpose, the underlying risk is real. You don't need a robot to turn evil for it to be dangerous. You just need a bug in the code, or a mismatch between what the robot thinks is happening and what's actually happening, like running a full body locomotion policy when the feet aren't touching ground. That alone can cause the system to try and stabilize itself with violent force. This is where things get serious. These machines are out in the world now, commercial, mobile, and capable of acting on their own. And when that power misfires, it is not just a glitch, it is a threat. One robot reprograms itself like a digital actor, another one malfunctions midair and nearly wrecks a lab. This is the double edge of humanoid progress, precision and chaos, living side by side. And if you think that's intense, wait until you see what Unitree just launched for $5,000. The R1 isn't just cheap, it's built to perform. Despite the surprisingly low price tag, Unitree didn't cut corners where it counts. This is a fully functional bipedal humanoid robot packed with capabilities you'd normally expect from machines 10 times the cost. It's designed for real-world use, not just lab demonstrations, and while last year's G1 came in at nearly 99,000 yuan, R1 slashes that down to 39,000. Without turning into a toy or a stripped-down prototype, what you get instead is a lightweight, high-agility platform with full-body articulation, onboard intelligence, and serious developer potential. And that's where things start to get interesting. For starters, the weight. R1 comes in at just 25 kilograms. That's 10 kilos lighter than the G1 and a full 20 kilos under Tesla's Optimus robot. It's the kind of weight reduction that changes how you handle the robot. Physically, yes, but also in terms of logistics, cost of materials, and use cases. This thing isn't some hulking machine that needs a custom rig to move around. You can carry it. You can ship it easily, you can put it on a table, wheel it into a classroom, or run it around a workshop. Unitree made that possible by building hollow limbs and a composite torso, shedding unnecessary bulk while keeping the frame strong and responsive. And it moves, really moves. The company didn't just show it walking and waving. In their videos, R1 handles downhill slopes, somersaults forward and backward, walks on its hands, balances on one leg, and boxes with fast, controlled motions. None of this looks clunky or overly cautious. You're seeing fluid motion, tight servo control, good balance, and impressive recovery when it shifts weight. That's made possible by 26 degrees of freedom, 6 joints per leg, 5 per arm, plus 2 across the waist and head. That's not quite the 40+ range you get on high-end research robots like Figure, but for a $5,000 humanoid, it's a huge deal. But movement alone doesn't sell a robot in 2025. What gives R1 its edge is what's inside, specifically the large multimodal language model running right on the device. According to Chinese sources, it's called UniFLM, short for Unified Multimodal Language Model. It doesn't just understand language, it processes vision and proprioception too. That means it sees, it hears, it knows how its body is positioned in space, and it can make sense of all of that information without sending data to the cloud. No latency, no connection drop, no delay, everything runs locally in real time. This is where Unitree really pulls ahead. Most affordable robots in this category either rely on external processing or limit functionality to basic scripted movements, not the R1. By integrating on-device AI, it becomes capable of real interaction. Whether that's recognizing objects, responding to voice commands, or adapting to new tasks in real time, it's doing that work on its own hardware. And that makes it a much more viable candidate for applications where you don't want to rely on a server, or where privacy and latency matter. The company's clearly aiming at multiple targets here. For developers, they're opening the system up to customization and modification. This isn't a locked product, it's a platform. You can write your own code, train your own models, or integrate new sensors. The company has already hinted at supporting widespread development, just like they did with their Go1 quadrupeds. And based on early community reaction, there's already a push to build training infrastructure and software tools around R1. Forums are spinning up, SDK rumors are circulating. It feels like the groundwork for an entire ecosystem. And that's the strategy. Unitree's not just building robots, they're building scale. This is the same model they used for four-legged bots. They cut price, ramped up production, and suddenly the Go1 was everywhere, from research labs to YouTube channels to high school STEM classes. Now they're doing it again, but this time with a humanoid robot that walks, talks, flips, and runs AI models locally, and this whole thing is happening in China. That matters. Unitree's production scale and material sourcing are grounded in a domestic market that's already comfortable integrating robotics across education, logistics, and entertainment. The R1 isn't some moonshot from a Silicon Valley startup. It's the next step from a company that's already profitable, already established, and already preparing for public listing. Yushu Technology, the parent company behind Unitree, has been in the game since 2016. They've got major public exposure, 5 straight years of profit, and more than 1 billion yuan in annual revenue. They're not looking for validation. They're scaling production and eyeing global rollout. During the recent China International Supply Chain Expo, Yushu's staff laid out what that vision looks like. Robots that go from single-task machines to multi-role systems. The idea is that a robot like R1 doesn't just carry a package, it then switches tools and helps on the assembly line. Eventually, it could clean your house, tutor your kid, or assist an elderly family member. That's not sci-fi, it's a manufacturing roadmap. And they've pegged the timeline at anywhere from 3 to 10 years depending on how fast they can optimize for power, material cost, and durability. It's also worth pointing out how clean this release has been. No vague coming soon statements, no overproduced CGI trailers, just hard specs, working demos, and a live price. The R1 is real, it's here and it works, and that's a big part of why the buzz isn't just excitement, it's tension. Because if you're one of Unitree's competitors, UBTech, Roboterra, Fourier, figure you're now on the defensive. This wasn't supposed to happen this fast. A humanoid robot with advanced mobility, embedded AI, and developer access under $6 grand? That was at least 5 years out. But Unitree just moved the entire timeline forward, and they're not being subtle about it. The company dropped promotional posts across platforms like Rednote and Weibo, posted demo videos showing off acrobatics, and started marketing R1 as the intelligent partner. Even the naming signals intent. It's not the H3 or S1 or some engineering label, it's R1, as in Robot 1, the one you'll start with, the first of many, the one meant to get out of the lab and into real life, and honestly, it might work. The price is low enough to attract hobbyists and indie developers. The performance is good enough to spark use cases in education, research, and automation. And the design is smart enough, lightweight, nimble, customizable, to make integration into real environments possible. There's still a lot we don't know. We haven't seen a full teardown. Battery specs are still under wraps. We don't have access to the SDK yet, though based on previous Unitree products, it's probably coming soon. But what we've seen is more than enough to set a new standard. You don't need $100,000 and a lab to start working with humanoid robots anymore. You need a Unitree R1 and a reason to build. So here we are. Humanoids are flipping, selling, walking, diagnosing, guiding, and even responding with emotional nuance, all in real time. This isn't a glimpse anymore, it's deployment. We've just watched 9 stories that reveal a single truth. The humanoid era is no longer a question of if, it's when, where, and how far we're willing to take it. In the next chapter, that's on us. If this video opened your eyes, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives, and drop a comment below. Which robot impressed you the most, and what job do you think they'll take over next? Stay curious, stay cautious, and don't blink. The future just did.